Have you been struggling to find or make an easy, simple fire shader for your games and animations? Look no further. Today, we're going to be using Blender and Eevee to create this right here. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So today we're going to be using Blender version 4.1. As always, it is my favorite version of Blender to work in. However, this technique will still work in all the later versions of Blender and most of the newer ones as well. Alright, so we are actually going to be using the default cube in this scene. Now, using your default cube here, we're going to go ahead and select it so there's an orange outline. Go down to your modifiers or the blue wrench tab. We're going to add a modifier to start with, generate subdivision surface. We're going to crank that up to 2, and then we're going to tab into edit mode. I will be using screencast keys in the bottom right hand corner down here. As you can see, it is casting my keys, just for your convenience so you can see what I'm hitting. So the first thing we're going to do in edit mode is go ahead and hit Control R to add a loop cut and scroll up out of quite a few, somewhere, around there. It looks pretty good, so it kind of turns into a cylinder. It's not an exact rocket science here, but if you want to know, I added 9 loop cuts. I'm going to go ahead and hit 3 on your normal keyboard, not the numpad, to hit face select mode up here. I'm going to select the top face, hit O for proportional editing, which means everything will edit in proportion to the face you're editing here. See how everything's stretching with it like that? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit GZ and move it up a bit, and S Shift Z and shrink it down a bit. Scroll out on your mouse to go ahead and affect more or less with the circle, and we will go ahead and make that a little smaller there. On the bottom, we're going to do the same thing, S Shift Z, and scroll your circle way in until you have a shape that resembles something along those lines right there. We can always change it later. Go ahead and right click in object mode and shade smooth. Okay, we're done with the first part here. We're going to go ahead and add another modifier. It's going to be a deform modifier and a displace modifier. We're going to go ahead and where it says new here, hit new, scroll down in this tab menu right here and go to the texture settings tab here. Where it says image or movie, we're going to hit the drop down and we are going to select clouds. I know it looks a little intense here, but we're going to go ahead and clean that up. Let's go over to your modifier menu again. We're going to go ahead and turn the strength of the modifier to 1. Okay, from here, we're going to go ahead and just add a planes axis. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and G and move it over. Hit N as in Nancy on your keyboard. Go to item and location. See how we can affect the Z location here? So we're going to add a driver in there. Type hashtag frame divided by, let's try 30 for now. Go ahead and select your flame object here. In the modifier settings, we're going to, where it says local, drop it down and go to object. And go ahead and eye drop that empty object. Okay, let's mess with the strength now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the strength to maybe, let's try like 1.7. See how that looks. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's maybe turn that down to 20. Just a little quicker here. So you can see how that's affecting our object. Now that looks pretty good in and of itself. However, we're going to go ahead and spice this up quite a bit. So we will go to the shader preview mode here. We're going to go ahead and add Shift A plane just to have something for it to sit on here. Move it down. It's below the flame there. So there's a couple different things that makes up a flame, right? There's the actual flame body itself, there's little sparks, and there's smoke. We're going to do this all procedurally here in Eevee, as mentioned before. So if you've been a viewer of my channel of any period of time, you kind of know what's coming here. The ultimate VFX shader for Blender, in my opinion anyways. We're going to go ahead and delete the principal BSDF, Shift A, and add in a mix. Not a mix color, a mix shader node. And go ahead and plug the surface into surface. We can go ahead and add in a color ramp and Shift D to copy that color ramp. I'm gonna make a little more room here just so you guys can see. The top color ramp is gonna go into the factor. The bottom color ramp is gonna go into the bottom shader here. We're gonna look for an emission node. We're going to plug that right in between this color ramp and this mix shader. That allows this color ramp to dictate the colors that the emission node is going to be pushing through. If you go up to your render settings up here, go ahead and enable bloom. If you're using a later version of Blender, then you'll no longer have this bloom option. You actually have to use the compositor here to get the same bloom effect. I have multiple videos showing how to do this, but I'll go over it very briefly. So if you go to this drop down, go to compositor, we can go up to this drop down arrow and say compositor always. Hit use nodes, and you can shift D and add a glare node. You can kind of see what it does to this 3D texture right here. This is basically the new glare. To get the same effect of what we're going to go with, you're going to drop down streaks, go to fog glow. You can change the size of it down to about 6, and that'll give you essentially the same effect as the glare or the bloom does. Back into the shader editor here. I turned off my compositor because I'm going to be using bloom, but again, it won't matter if you guys are using a later version. Just set up your compositor like I did. Hit the drop down always so you can see it, and it will also render out with the bloom. Shift A, add a mix color node. And we're going to go ahead and plug that mix color node into the factor of this top color ramp here. I'm going to shift D this color ramp, plug the color into factor A, and we're going to shift D the color ramp one more time and plug the color into factor B. Let's start getting a little bit of color on this thing so we can actually see what we're dealing with. Down in the color ramp that comes off the emission, we're going to go ahead and turn the emission up a little bit so it glows nicely. Got a little white fire going on. And let's set it up with some actual fire colors. So let's go ahead and pick like a warmish yellow. Grab this black slider. We're going to go ahead and slide it in just to set it up for our later nodes. I'm going to change this color ramp to B-spline because it is the best and most gentle mixing one that I can find in the color ramp. Go ahead and hold control and left click, and you will add in another little node here, another little slider. You can hit this plus button, but it's way random. See, it just kind of adds them where it wants it, sort of in the middle. If you hit control and click, you can put them exactly where you want them. We're gonna make this one still yellow, but maybe a little darker, and let's go slightly more orange. And we can always mess with these later. In fact, we're going to mess with these later, but we're just gonna set them up right now so we can sort of see what we're doing. Just pick a nice little reddish orange color, and that should do it for now. We are going to come back, of course, and change these colors around. So go up to your mix color, shift D, duplicate that mix color. Go ahead and plug the result into the factor. We're gonna go ahead and shift A and look for a noise texture. Shift A and look for a Voronoi texture. We're gonna go ahead and mix the distance into socket B and the color of the noise into socket A. You can kind of already see the effect starting to happen here. Shift A and look for an invert color and put it in between the Voronoi and the mix. Now it's looking more like flame to me. If you do not have Node Wrangler enabled, go up to Edit, Preferences, and look for Node. And you'll see Node Wrangler right here. Go ahead and enable it. Hamburger menu, save preferences, and you can exit out of that. Okay, we're going to click on the Voronoi texture down here and hit Control T with Node Wrangler enabled. If you decide not to enable it for whatever reason, you can always Shift A and look for a mapping node here and a texture coordinate node and hook them up as you see here. Back up top, now we need to put a mask on this guy. So masks are always interesting to play around with, especially in Blender, or I suppose in any aspect of life. But today we're going to be using it to kind of map out or mask out the parts we want and the parts we don't want of this fire here. Okay. So in order to achieve that, we're going to utilize this mix shader that we used at the very beginning here. And we are going to Shift A and look up a transparent BSDF node and plug it into the top shader slot on that mix shader. Go down to your material properties down here, and where it says blend mode right here, where it says opaque, hit the drop down and we're going to hit alpha blend. Also, where it says shadows, we're going to go ahead and select none. Just because, you know, flame sort of casts a shadow, kinda, but not really, because it's mostly, you know, light. So the only thing that really casts a shadow is smoke. And we're not going to worry about that. Okay, so this is the beginning setup to be able to mask it out. So we're going to use the black and white values here, the transparent here, to mask out the parts we do and do not want. So we already have the factor hooked up, which is the mask. So if we cut that factor, it doesn't really change too much. But if I start messing with these sliders, you can see now it's affecting it quite a bit. To nothing, to completely transparent or completely opaque here. Now I'm going to go ahead and Shift A and add in a masking texture here, and it's called a gradient texture. I'm going to plug the factor into the factor of this color ramp, and we're going to leave it on linear. Go ahead and click on it, your gradient texture, Control T to add in a texture coordinate and mapping node. We're going to go ahead and leave it on generated into vector. On this color ramp right here, right after the gradient texture, we're going to flip the black and white values and pull this black one in almost all the way to the white. And on the color ramp after this color ramp, through the mix shader, or through the mix color, we are going to pull this black slider in a bit and change this to B-spline. Something like that looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the strength of the emission up. You guys can find a place where you like where the emission is. I'm gonna leave it at 59.9 for now. That might change later. Remember this little empty we added constantly moving upwards? Well, I'm going to take that empty, hit N again, go to item, and change it from 20 to, let's say, 15. We can even make it quicker than that. Let's go with, let's try 10. I think 10 is pretty good. A nice little number. I'm going to go ahead and go to the animation tab and make the end something ridiculous like 1,000. Just so it stops looping on us and we can see what we're doing. So that is pretty much having this thing, be done here. Let's go ahead and change it up a little bit more. And how we're going to change it up a little bit more is we are going to actually build off of this color ramp right here. Because it is going into our mix shader or our mix color, which is being fed through black and white data into the factor of this mix shader. Again, remember the factor is actually the mask telling us what we want where. Remember, we can affect the mask like so. So how are we going to do this? Well, I'm going to go ahead and utilize one of my favorite nodes, and it's called a layer weight node. We are going to go ahead and plug in Fresnel into factor. And it does this little interesting funky thing here. But to go ahead and put a little bit more of a leash on that, we're going to use this color ramp here to decide exactly what we want it to look like. So I'm going to change the blend to 0.4 and go ahead and flip these values because I don't want it to be on the inside, I want it to be on the outside, like so. I'm going to change this to B-spline so it's nice and soft. So now you can see how it's kind of fading away to the outside. If I flip them again, remember now it's the inside, now it's the outside. So we can really affect how much or how little is actually invisible there. So we are going to go ahead and pull this slider way in, Control click, to add a gray and pull that in as well. I think that looks pretty good. Go ahead and crank your emission up a bit more to get some more brightness out of this sucker, because it is a flame after all. So now that you have that done, you can kind of see how this toon flame here is taking shape and effect. If you want it to go ahead and be a little less bulby and blobby up here, you can always take some of these rings out by going to edit mode, selecting them, and dissolving the edges. Yeah, similar to that. Yeah. That's looking a little better already. You can always mess with the colors on this color ramp down here that feeds into the emission, and that will change the color of the actual flame itself. Black will affect how much is showing through with this mix shader. You can see these spots are really showing up in it now. That is very similar to what we want here. We actually want to take these spots and kind of stretch them up from the bottom because that is more realistic as far as how a flame actually looks. So we are going to go ahead and go over to the Voronoi texture and let's mess with this. Let's go to about 3. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's leave the detail. Let's go to like 0.1. Crank the roughness up to 1 on those. Just mess around with that until you find something that you like. We're going to change this noise texture from 3D to 4D. And we're going to go ahead and animate this using this mapping node over here. Remember, Z animates these little streaks. So we're going to go ahead and Z is the up and down value, right? Type in hashtag frame divided by 15. Enter. Now you can see they're moving, but in the wrong direction. So go ahead and click on that again, the back arrow, and hit minus. So it reads minus frame divided by 15, and they will reverse the direction there. So now they're going up. That looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and control this gradient texture a little bit more up top here, because again, we want it to kind of come from the bottom. So after the gradient texture where it says linear, we're going to go ahead and control the rotation of it here. So let's go ahead and pause this by hitting spacebar. We'll use this rotation value here. As you can see, it will affect the gradient of our object. And we want this bright spot to be kind of at the bottom. So let's maybe change this by try 90. Looks good. And negative some value, negative 10. Let's go maybe 0.1. Now they are starting from the bottom is brighter and the top is getting a little darker. And that is what we want. I'm gonna move it down a little further. Yeah, there we go. Negative 13, something like that. There we go. Now it's looking good. Really, honestly, I would just mess with this until you get the look that you want. This is really gonna help you, later on in Blender if you don't just strictly follow tutorials and you mess around with what we're showing you here. You can really achieve the effects that you are actually looking for instead of just what the creator wanted at the time. And then you will also learn quite a bit about how Blender works as well when you do it like that. I get a lot of questions from people like, well, how do you learn these nodes? And, how do you know how all this stuff does? Well, honestly, I've been doing this for years and years, and I've watched countless tutorials, of course. I've messed around with these for hours on end. And honestly, once you learn how these nodes work, what they do, then you can kind of make whatever you want. So now we have the bright part at the bottom and the darker space up at the top there. So I think that is looking pretty good for Flame. Okay. So now you can, the Fresnel down here, Fresnel, whatever you want to call it, you can mess with these sliders and get more or less of a disappearing flame up at the top. All right. So you could do a little more realistic and have it actually disappear up top, or you could do a little more cartoony and kind of just barely have it be translucent up at the top. I personally like this look right here, but that's just me. So that's pretty much this portion of the flame done. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and take this object here, Shift D to duplicate it, and we're going to go ahead and shrink it down. So it's now inside of there. As you can see, it's quite a bit smaller. We're going to go ahead and layer it up. So G, move it down to the base here. What we can do is we're going to go ahead and turn the strength of the actual effector of it down. Let's go like 0.5. So it's barely moving there. That looks pretty good. Take the top portion and shrink it down, grab it, move it down, something like that. Looks good. So this is going to be sort of the base of the flame here. We're going to go ahead and with it selected, right, with the duplicated one selected, hit this duplicate texture button. So now it says material 001. Whatever we do in this one will not affect the material we just made, right? So you can see that it is only affecting this new one. So I'm going to mess with this mix color. So I don't really want it at the top as much. There we go. So you can see it's really fading out at the top now. And I'm going to go ahead and increase this bottom mix pretty much up to 1. It's going to be like 0.7, 0.8, something like that. So now you can really see these Voronoi textures coming through here. And that's exactly what we want. So Shift S, Shift Z, make it a little bigger, grab it, move it over. grab it, move it down, S, Z, right? So kind of blend it into that fire there. So there we go. So now you have these really hot flames down here at the bottom poking through. Okay, we're going to take this big fire we made, Shift D, S to scale it up. Now we're going to go ahead and delete multiple little lines in here, dissolve edges, so now it's really blocky looking. That is in fact what we want. Okay, something like that. Go ahead and change the strength, tone it. Let's tone it down a bit. All right, and then S Shift Z and SZ itself. So now it really engulfs it. You can see how much bigger that is. We're gonna shrink it down a little bit here, but you can really see basically just a duplicated flame. Well, we're gonna go ahead and duplicate that color again. So now it's material 002. And on material 002, we're gonna go ahead and get rid of multiple things here. So let's go ahead and get rid of this whole top portion here, delete. Let's move it over so we can sort of see what we're doing a little bit better. On this color ramp, click the little sliders and hit minus. You'll go ahead and get rid of them. We'll leave red and black, and we'll change B-spline to linear, and we will push this black one way in here. There we go. And we will also now use this color ramp for colors as a mask, plug the color into the factor of the mix shader. Okay, so let's mess with these until we get the effect we're looking for, which is essentially that. We're going to delete the noise and the mix and the invert. We're going to leave the texture, coordinate, and mapping nodes. We're going to plug the color into the bottom color ramp here. And you can see the effect that's giving. So now let's go ahead and mess with these a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. And let's change the scale up. Make it go up quite a bit. Alrighty. And where we did hashtag negative frame 15, we're gonna go ahead and make this 40. So now you have a lot of them here, but this color ramp will go ahead and control how much, right? So slide the black in a little further, something like that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and grab it and move it back over this. And now we have some sparks. So now you just manipulate the shape of it until you like how the sparks look. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Not bad at all. So now one last thing, and it is the smoke. Now the smoke will be a little different. It is essentially going to be the same thing, but we are going to go ahead and change a couple little settings on it, right? Because it's clearly not flame. So we're actually just going to take the flame we made, Shift D, stretch it up, stretch it out, and all right, let's add in a few more loop cuts on this guy so it's not so jagged. Turn the strength down on it, something like that looks good. The size you can affect it quite easily, so let's go ahead and turn the strength on the size way up to 2. And where we had these fire colors before, we are actually going to go ahead and, I know, what a shocker, delete them, right? So you click on the little marker and hit minus. Okay, so you have this black one, control click, and make this one completely white. You can see where we're going with this. We're gonna move this black one in, turn the strength way down to, yeah, something like 8 or less. Okay, shrink it in. So now you can really just play with the size of the shape here until you get something you like. I'm gonna be making a video a little bit later on exactly how to get a lot of these VFX into game engines, because it's been requested quite a few times as well. And people can't seem to find anywhere online how to do so. But I do know how. I do it all the time. So I will go ahead and make that a future video. So this is the effect essentially done. Thank you so much for watching this video. Consider liking and subscribing if you learned something here. I will see you guys in the next one.